Now, our channel is supposed to be about sharing information about motorcycles. Well, today we made a big boo-boo, and I wanted to share it on video. It's not fair if you edit out all the mistakes, and today I wanted to work on the RD, and I don't want to let the cat out of the bag. It's a relatively simple thing to change the coils, but there's a couple of pitfalls to avoid, and I stepped in one of them today. And it's my own fault. I'm not blaming anybody else. But I thought by sharing this mistake, and at the end of it, I'll explain what the resolve is. This is something you can avoid. All right, today's shop project, and on this video, we're going to try to show how to replace the coils on our RD 400. The reason for replacing them is we're anticipating putting an electronic ignition on, similar to what Luciano and Ray have done on their bikes. And one of the things I want to do is start with all new parts when I do that. So replacing the coils will be the job today, and at some future time we're going to make the decision of which electronic ignition we want, and we'll make a different video for that too. So the first thing is to move things around here so we have some room to work on the RD, bring it out into the middle of the floor. And it requires a little bit of disassembly. You have to take the tank off and various other little parts, but this is a relatively straightforward, simple job. Should be a couple hours, and I don't know if the weather's going to cooperate. That we'll get to test it in the next day or so. Step one on this job, relatively easy. We got to open the seat up, take the two bolts out of the back of the tank. There's a quick disconnect on that line, and remove the fuel lines, and we can remove the fuel tank. Here with the seat open, we have two bolts have to come out, and we have to remove the quick disconnect in the front. Now, a stock bike would just have a piece of tubing there, and the problem with that is, of course, it's a sloppy job to do this. When you have the quick disconnect, you can, and I'll show that once I get the tank off, it just keeps gas from dripping down on the engine while you're removing the tank. Now, usually working on an RD is relatively straightforward and simple, but I'm always careful that I don't put something in backwards or whatever. I don't want to get overconfident. Okay, with those bolts out, the fuel line is the next thing, and the quick disconnect. And this is a good time when you have the fuel line pulled up. If the fuel line is getting rock hard, which they usually do, this old school stuff, it's a good idea to replace it. This is a very convenient time to replace it. Now, a really good tip, if you know you're going to take the tank off on an RD, it makes it very easy. Running almost out of gas just makes it lighter and easier to handle with. So here are the old coils, and they're pretty much self-explanatory. We've got bolts in there that have to come out, and we've got to get the old ones out. Of course, we want to make sure we put the right wires to the right wires. We're going to have to make some connectors. The new ones have different connectors than the old ones. We'll just make up some new connectors, and that's the end of it. I took this outside. I wanted to replace the fuel line on everything, and I wanted to replace the fuel line on the quick disconnect. That fuel line is so hard for so many years. That clear plastic stuff always gets really hard. See, that's why if you're doing this job, it's always good to have just a little bit of fuel in the tank when you're working this. I just made a little temporary line to hold that, because there is about, well, I don't know, 2 gallons of fuel or whatever in there, but that line, that's an important thing to remember. That line, that plastic, the rubber is a little bit better, but even the rubber is, I'm not sure you can buy the best quality stuff. This is some stuff I got off the internet. Luciano gave me some that was a little bit better, but I haven't found anything that's like the old school stuff. Now, anytime I have the quick disconnect taken apart, I do 2 tests. Blow into this side, make sure nothing gets through, because it's a check valve in both sides. Blow into this side the same way, then connect them and make sure you can blow through it. When it's connected, you should be able to blow through. Otherwise, you're never going to get that last little bit of fuel out of the tank. Now, I made these oversized. I'm going to trim them down once I get this put back on the tank, but without this, it really is a sloppy job. When you disconnect one tube and try to plug it and take the tank off and you're by yourself, this really does, and thank you, Luciano, for this idea. We use these on all the track bikes. Work perfectly. That is really one good tip. So the first thing I want to do is get the cap off of this, because we're going to have to use the cap over. I want to trace out the wires that are going to the coils and make up new ends for the wires, since these are not going to connect. I want these to connect to the new coils have a spade connector, and I'll make that little adjustment to the wires. And orange is always the hot side, brown is the ground. So I'm glad I got to show this, and as I went to marry the coils up, I noticed that these are not, shame on me for not noticing it before I pull this apart. These are not the right coils, so I guess we're dead in the water here. And we're going to have to return these coils and see if we can get the right ones. So unfortunately, there's a lesson to be learned here, and I really don't have a way of making it any simpler than this. And I like to share the mistakes I make as I make them. That's part of what we do on the channel. Is pretty much, here's what the problem is we didn't check this. I didn't have a way of checking it. When I ordered the coils, I didn't even check them. I just assumed I had gotten stuff from this distributor before. Well, I'm going to call them, see if we can replace them, and we'll just leave the bike taken apart and live to fight another day. And sometimes that's the way it works with old motorcycling, unfortunately. So here's the company I ordered this from, Parts and More. Well, they are the wrong coils, and there's no returns on electrical, so I'm going to contact them and see if they're a legitimate company, and if they're not, I'll pass that information on. So again, because we're sharing information, and I always try to share my mistakes because I know other people, well, let's face it, we all make the same mistake, whether we admit it or not. But there's a big mistake. The big mistake on my part was I did not check the website when I ordered the part. Luciano gave me the thing in good faith. He had ordered parts from them, to be perfectly fair, and they were no problem. But when I went to order parts, I did not check that they were coming from Canada. They were not coming from the United States. So that is really mistake one. And I am a big believer of, I only like to order things from the United States. So the next part of this equation is, if you look at the website, which I didn't do, another thing I'm guilty of, big red letters on the website, you cannot return electrical parts. Well, what if these coils were bad? Well, I also think, what if they're the wrong coils, which was their fault? Now, I haven't resolved it yet, so I don't want to either say good or bad, and I don't want to badmouth anybody's mail order business. But you got to be careful before you order something, and I did not do that, so I have to take the blame for that. I should have checked that they were coming from the United States, and if not, find a company in the United States. Because when you go to return this, it's very, very expensive to ship these parts back to Canada. It's a ton of money. Now, I'm kind of brainwashed, to be honest, because Karen buys a lot of things off the internet. We buy things from Amazon. We buy things almost every day. And Lowe's, Home Depot, I'm used to the idea you can always just conveniently return things. In the case of a lot of stuff that Karen buys, they pay the shipping back. Well, in this case, I don't know how it's going to resolve, if they're going to even offer to pay the shipping back, since it was their mistake. I checked my copy of the invoice. It clearly says RD400 coils. I got a thing, and I should have had the tip off. I opened the box, and there was a card in there from a place called VintageCB750.com. And when I tried to respond to that, it's an invalid address. There's no such address. So that kind of was another little tip off. So while we're looking back at all these old RD pictures, and these are all significantly old pictures of all the days we had with the RD years ago, here's the point. I want to order these electronic ignitions. But the problem is they come from England, and this clearly made me gun shy about ordering anything from overseas that I can't conveniently return if they ship it wrong. See, that's the thing. If you decide it's wrong, you buy something and you ordered the wrong part, I understand. They'd want you to pay the shipping back. But this is clearly a case they sent something totally wrong from this CB7 vintage CB750 guy. Now, I don't know, and these people are in Canada. I have a gut feeling I'm not even going to get a response to my email. But to be honest, if I do in the next week or so, I will post it up. And if they offer to pay the shipping on the parts back, I'll be very impressed. But in the meantime, I just wanted all of my friends to be aware. No matter what website you order from, if it's in the United States, the shipping it back might even be reasonable. But shipping things back overseas, believe me, when you go to the post office and you see the cost, it's out of the question. So the final insult is when you do order this stuff and you read the fine print on a website, it says they only accept returns that are shipped by the U.S. Post Office. Now I know, because I had a mail order business for 27 years, I know there's no more expensive way on earth to ship something to Canada than the U.S. Post Office. So maybe they're trying to discourage people from returning things. I don't know. But I know the majority of what went wrong today was my fault. I accept responsibility. And actually, all I'm interested in doing on this video is that people that are my friends and people that would watch this video share that information. Think twice before you jump on ordering something from overseas. Overseas stuff can get tricky. And I know Luciano has good luck. He's bought all kind of things from China and Japan and God knows what. But I have been burned more than once now, and I hope this is the last time. So the bottom line here, and as I look at these old snowy photos, it reminds me, over the winter we'll be doing a lot of work. That electronic ignition now is a big question mark in my mind. And again, I'm only trying to pass on this as information. And in the past, I've bought some things from overseas, and I've had things that I've got really burned on that have really been, I think, fraudulent. I'm going to leave it at that. All I'm going to say is to my friends, be careful. And if you deal with a company that's happy to pay the return on their mistake, pass that information on. And we will pass on if this doesn't resolve itself the way it should. But in the meantime, hey, I got to look at some nice snowy photos, cooled me off a little bit. We are going to be doing a lot of work over the winter. I'm getting ready to paint the MT wheels. Trying to finalize some stuff on some of the other projects we have here lining up. But I tried to use a day today to what should have been about a 1 or 2 hour job to swap out coils. I should already be out on the open road. And instead I spent 2 hours on the internet trying to contact people that don't have a phone number. Never buy from people who don't have a phone number. Now everybody knows I had a mail order business for over 27 years, selling model airplane parts, some of which I manufactured, some of which I drop shipped. But here's the whole thing in a nutshell. When you have that kind of business where you don't have to worry about paying an electric bill in a store and a brick facade, well, the thing is you got to have service for your customers. And when you ship the wrong part, again, it changes if you order the wrong part, that's one thing. But when they ship the wrong part and it's shipped from far away and you go down the post office and they tell you how much the return shipping is, and believe me, I ship thousands of dollars worth of stuff to Canada. It is not the most reliable place in the world to ship stuff to. And from time to time, I got burned and had to replace a package that never got there. Yeah, so I know about this. But the tip-off here is when you see something like this and you can't return it, or it's going to be difficult to return, just be aware of that. That's the whole lesson I had to relearn today. And I always think education, going to college is hundreds of thousands of dollars. Slamming your hand in the car door is a big hospital bill. You got to learn. If you crash your bike, you got to learn how to ride. But learning how to order parts for older bikes can be tricky. And I think the lesson I learned today, and believe me, I'm not trying to blame anybody. It's on me, 100% on me. And I just wanted to pass that information on, just as if I had run out of gas on a bike or if I had a flat tire or whatever. There's the good, the bad, and the ugly. Today was pretty ugly. But I managed to maintain my sense of humor. And I managed to, at the end of the day, I just put the whole bike back together. And I'll live to fight another day, I hope. But I always think there is something special about our channel. And what's special about it is that we share a passion. The passion we have, older bikes, newer bikes, sport bikes, touring bikes, you name it. It's a hard thing to describe to people that don't have the passion, that may, or less of a passion. But I have to be honest, when I wake up in the morning, I can't wait to get out to the garage, take care of the farm, take care of the business at hand, whatever Karen needs me to do, and have absolutely a couple of hours out on the open road maybe, or on days I can't. I like to have days like today, except for the fact that the parts didn't fit. But even that, sharing that is an important thing. Because a lot of people think, yeah, if you have an old bike, it's just a piece of cake. It's anything but a piece of cake. It's a labor of love. And you have to really want to do it, and you have to really want to be able to pay the price. And not only willing to pay the price, you've got to be able to pay the price. There's just some disappointments along the way. For me, today was a very disappointing day, but nothing about 10 extra cups of coffee wouldn't solve. And when I get the new coils on and resolve whether I want to do that electronic ignition, well, the gods really will see everywhere. That's true, so what can I say? So if you're new to the channel, it's not all bad days. We do have good days, and we do learn things along the way. We do try to share them. All winter we'll be restoring bikes, painting wheels, painting fairings, trying to do some carbon fiber work. And you never know. Every day is an adventure. And I always say I don't want 2 days of my life to be exactly the same like Groundhog Day. Today, certainly, I have not had a day like today in a long time. So the Groundhog Day of my life didn't happen. The evil twins are going to happen. The comrades are going to happen. Everything that we enjoy about motorcycling is going to happen. We try to post up something every day, even on days like today when the wind is blowing in the wrong direction. We post something. So I hope you did enjoy the video, and thanks for watching. See you tomorrow.